Hi, Dr. YASS here. In this video, I'm going to discuss 3 fallacies that I believe keep people as prisoners to the medical establishment because they create the sense that pain can only be resolved through the medical establishment, and therefore you have to continually go back to them hoping that eventually they'll come up with the way of making your pain resolve the cause of your pain, and therefore you can eventually go on with your life. These 3 fallacies are horrible in the sense that by any sense of logic, you can see that they make no sense. When you look at things from an empirical perspective, which is the way the YASS method works, it is to say that you see what is and then try to explain it, versus simply creating theoretical premises and then trying to make what is meet the theoretical premise so that it can justify what is. That's what's wrong with the medical establishment and why roughly 130 million Americans and roughly 1 billion people worldwide are suffering from chronic pain. You're suffering from chronic pain because you're not getting the right diagnosis, and therefore you're never getting the treatment that's necessary to resolve the cause of your symptoms. So, number 1, the first fallacy is that all pain represents a neurological cause. That if you're having pain, the only way you're ever going to be able to address that pain is by addressing it through the neurological system, right? So if I said to you, if you're having pain, what is the cause? Most of you would say, oh, it's a nerve. It must be a nerve, because nerves are what cause pain to be transmitted. That is the greatest fallacy ever perpetuated. Let me show you it from, an empirical position. You're having pain at your chest and your left arm as a result of having a heart attack. Do you literally think that if we opened up your heart, you would find a nerve that is emitting the pain? Does that make sense? That literally I would open up your heart and we're going to find a nerve in there? That would be complete insanity to think that. The actual heart muscle is eliciting the pain. The tissue in distress is the heart muscle. Around the muscle cells are pain receptors that sit in the connective tissue surrounding the cells, but it is the cell that emits the pain, which is then eventually picked up by the pain receptor, and then that signal of pain is referred back to the brain via a nerve, but it is not the nerve that's eliciting the pain. It is the heart cell. So in a case like this, any attempt you want to try to address the cause of heart-related pain by addressing a nerve is pure insanity. Anyone should recognize that. Let's say you're having pain associated with a kidney stone. Again, do you think that if I were to open your kidney, we are going to find nerves in the kidney? The actual organ, we opened up, you're going to find nerves? That would, again, be a completely insane premise. The pain associated with a kidney stone is due to the inability of a cholesterol molecule to pass down one of the tubes that make up the cells of the kidney. The walls of the tubes have connective tissue surrounding them, and within them are pain receptors. So when the tube becomes irritated by the inability of the cholesterol molecule to pass through it, it ignites a pain receptor that is true. Will have to have that pain signal returned back to the brain via a nerve. But again, it is not the nerve or the pain signal or the pain receptor igniting the pain distress signal. It is the kidney cell. The same thing can happen if you are straining a muscle, for instance. When the muscle strains, there is no nerve in your muscle. The muscle cell itself elicits pain. Surrounding the muscle cell is connective tissue, which has pain receptors in them, in the connective tissue. When the muscle cell elicits pain, it ignites the pain receptor, which then sends a signal through a nerve to the brain. All the attempts to treat nerves in addressing a muscle cell eliciting pain is psychotic. And we can just go on and on and on with every single organ, every tissue in the body. You must understand that this premise that pain comes from nerve is just fictitious crap created by a system that would love you to forever have your nerves treated. But what does empirical data tell you? All the attempts to treat via nerve have failed. That is why you have chronic pain. Chronic pain primarily exists for one reason: misdiagnosis. The tissue in distress eliciting the pain is not identified properly through the proper diagnostic model, and therefore the tissue in distress continues to be in distress while you're treating the wrong tissue, nerve. So that is by far one of the worst fallacies ever perpetuated. Pain is always associated with nerve. It's actually quite the opposite. It is associated with primarily all tissues. All tissues can elicit pain when that tissue becomes irritated or in distress, and the pain does transmit via a nerve to the brain, but that has nothing to do with the tissue that is in fact eliciting the pain. Number 2 fallacy: severe pain must come from a structural variation. So if you're having severe pain, you can assume it must be a bone or a nerve. It could never come from a muscle, because muscles don't elicit severe pain. Again, going back to empirical data, over the almost 3 decades of time I've been treating people, I have had people be put in hospitals as a result of muscles in spasm. I have people who came to me and said they wanted to commit suicide because they could not take the level of pain that was being experienced by a muscle in distress. So that fallacy, again, can be debunked by looking at real-world experience. The severity of pain is just a representation of the intensity of distress of the tissue. That's all that represents. So the idea that severe pain can only represent a bone or a nerve or some structural element, and therefore you need the medical system, is complete nonsense. Muscles can elicit just as severe pain as any structural element. The severity of the symptom is simply a representation of the severity of distress of the tissue. So let's end this idea that because your pain is so severe, it can't be muscle. That's just crap. Especially if you recognize that what brings on that severe symptom relates to an activity or a task, some functional thing you're trying to perform that then brings it on. You have just reinforced without question that it is muscle. So severe pain can come from muscle and therefore is not always associated with structure such as bone or nerve. Finally, the greatest fallacy ever perpetuated is the idea that the MRI, in fact, identifies the tissue in distress or the cause of your pain. This is by far, without question, the greatest fallacy ever perpetuated in the medical field on humankind in the history of mankind. We're going on well over 40 years. There is absolutely no basis for the statement that MRIs identify the cause of pain. In fact, every bit of evidence proves it is baseless. There is no possible way that an MRI will find the cause of your pain. It's simply using correlative theory or junk science, which simply says that when a structural variation is identified at the time you're having pain, it must therefore be the cause of your pain, is just the most foolish, childlike form of logic. The same thing can be said, if that is true, that if the MRI found that you have 2 elbows, that in fact 2 elbows is the cause of your pain. You'll laugh at that, but you don't laugh at the fact that just because a herniated disc or stenosis or a meniscal tear is found at the time of your pain, it must be the cause of your pain. That doesn't. You seem to be willing to accept that when you're not accepting the fact that just because 2 elbows is found at the time of your pain, that is the cause. But it is exactly the same principle, and therefore should be laughed at just the same. as just simply saying because two elbows is found at the time of your pain, it is the cause. Every bit of evidence, whether it's theoretical, clinical, scientific, everything proves this is baseless. It is the primary reason chronic pain exists. It has never existed in the history of mankind prior to the advent of the use of the MRI as the gold standard for diagnosing the cause of your pain. All studies about treatments or surgeries based on positive findings from MRIs has shown to fail. So, at some point, you're going to have to be willing, and it doesn't matter how many doctors you go to. Again, empirical data. What is the true truth, is the true science. Not modeling, not theory. What is. You simply need to be able to explain it. The YASS method explains it. The YASS method says that to find the tissue in distress, we don't accept any of these three fallacies. We simply try to interpret the body's presentation of symptoms to identify the tissue in distress, which is exactly why that tissue happens to be eliciting the very symptoms you're experiencing. The symptoms you're experiencing are coming from the tissue in distress. Therefore, if you could interpret the symptoms, you can interpret what tissue is eliciting it. All tissues elicit quite specific symptoms. Therefore, you can identify which tissue it is by understanding the symptoms. That is at the core of the YASS method. That is how it works. It ignores all three of these psychotic fallacies, which have left pretty much all of you in chronic pain, and eventually lead you to those terrible, terrible feelings of hopelessness, depression, and for many, suicide. So, if you would like to get beyond these three fallacies, and what I'm saying makes sense to you, you could contact me at email, drmitch@mitchellyass.com, drmitch@mitchellyass.com. If you think this makes enough sense to you that you would like to proceed by getting a Skype or Zoom session with me so I can properly identify you, and if it's confirmed that the cause of your pain is muscle, we could show you how to do some exercise and get you out of pain pretty quickly and have you back to full function in no time. Also, email me at drmitch@mitchellyass.com, drmitch@mitchellyass.com. If you like this video and it makes sense to you, give it a thumbs up. If you like my YouTube channel, Dr. Mitchell Yass, please subscribe so that you can get notifications when new videos are added or when I am live on YouTube. I will continue to be putting out these videos because it is important that you have the information that is needed for you to make proper decisions about how you want to be treated and how you want to move forward in addressing your pain or other symptoms. At some point, you're going to have to make that jump of logic that says that what's been done isn't working, not because you haven't gotten the right treatment, but because you haven't gotten the right diagnosis. Then you'll be willing to look beyond the existing medical establishment, and I'll be sitting there waiting to help you logically and with passion and desire to see you get what you need so that you can be pain-free and fully functional and have the life you so justly deserve. All right? For now, Dr. Mitchell Yass wishing you a pain-free, fully functional life. Bye-bye for now.